Okay, so last week, or 2 weeks ago, not last week. Last week we had the good doctor, share with us. 2 weeks ago, we talked about the methodology of doing cultural exegesis using this book called Everyday Theology that I've been reading. And so I just wanted to recap that. So as we enter in to tonight, we have the framework of doing what we're going to do. So basically, cultural exegesis is simply faith-seeking understanding in our everyday world. And from that book, Everyday Theology, it says that culture does 4 things. You might remember what culture does? 4 things. This would be impressive to anybody.
Defines.
Close. I mean, that's close.
Oh. Is that?
I don't know. I
I
can't.
have a couple.
Yeah, turn it up, turn it up, turn it. Hold on, hold
Oh,
on.
no, we can barely hear y'all.
Okay, do I need to talk louder?
No, it's us. We need to turn up our speakers.
Okay. I remember 2 of them. It orients and it cultivates us.
Boom!
Oh, look at this.
Wow.
That is correct.
Holy.
Now, if we can finish off these last 2, I might just end class now and just, just hang out.
Wait, it orients and what? Cultivates?
Yeah, those are 2. There's 2 more.
Explains.
Connects us all.
It is a C word.
The C word.
There's another C word. Cultivates.
There's a C word and an R word. I know that really narrows it down.
Hold on.
Like reflect.
And they're both English words.
Reflect.
Can I get the origin?
Refreshing.
Culture communicates.
Oh, of course it does.
And it
Regulates.
regulator. No. Culture communicates, and so what it communicates a vision for the meaning of life. And then culture orients. It gives us a sense of direction. Culture reproduces.
Ooh.
So it spreads its beliefs, its values, its ideas, its fashions, its practices from one group to another. So, for instance, our man sport that we talked about.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. That's talking way more than just our fragrance or man scent. That's talking about lots of other things. So, and then the final one was culture cultivates. So it shapes our heart. So it communicates, it orients, it reproduces, it cultivates.
Court. Act.
So what we talked about 2 weeks ago was, well, how do we go about doing culture exegesis? What is the way or method to doing it? And so we called it hermeneutic, or a method of interpreting. And the way that we're going to do it is using the formula that I used for biblical exegesis, which is looking at the world behind, the world of, and the world in front of the text. So the text being whatever culture provides us as something to examine or to read. So behind the text is basically the background information as much as we can get. Of the text is looking at that actual text, and then in front of the text is the meaning or whatever it is. Feel like, yeah, am I eating? Sounds like a farm. Or, catching that. Let's see. Another way that the authors try to help us read culture is to use what they call speech acts to determine certain things. What is going on?
Like water sloshing or something.
I don't know. Anyway, all right. So locution, illocution.
No.
Is it
No,
Mo?
stop moving.
Oh, quit smacking.
Mo.
All right, locution, illocution, and perlocution. So locution is when someone says something. So a statement or a phrase or whatever. Illocution, yes. Illocution is what is intended by saying it, and perlocution is the effect it has on the listener. So the example I used a couple of weeks back was the man asked his wife, "Hey, there's this party coming up. I'd really like to go. What do you think?" And she says, "I'm not feeling well." And he says, "Oh, I'll fix you a bowl of soup." Now, no way did she answer his question with a direct phrase. Like, she didn't say, "No, I don't want to go to the party." She just said, "I'm not feeling well." So the locution is the man asking about the party. The illocution is what was intended by what she responded with. So she intended to say, "I don't want to go because I'm not feeling well," and then the perlocution is the effect it had on the listener, where he reacted with, oh, I'll fix you a bowl of soup. Like he responded in that way. He didn't go, well, you didn't answer my question. Does that make sense? Like he understood the intended meaning behind what she said. And then some of the guidelines that we talked about, just to keep in mind, it's not about memorization, of course, but it's just to keep in the back of our heads, is we're going to try to comprehend a culture text before we interpret it. So try to understand it the best way we can before we project onto it what we think it means. Identify what culture is doing and what it's saying. Consider the world behind and front of the text. Determine the power served by a particular cultural text. Seek its world hypothesis or root metaphor. Be comprehensive. Give thick descriptions. So don't reduce something. For instance, some of us are probably going to introduce some ideas or some thoughts or some songs or movies or whatever that not all of us are going to enjoy on a surface level. So instead of what we normally do, which is flip the channel, turn it off, we're going to engage it. Let's see. What does culture text say about being human? Discern what faith a cultural text expresses, and locate the cultural text in a biblical narrative. So the last thing that we're going to do is try to, in some way, understand what our faith has to say about whatever it is that we're looking at culturally. So that's what we're going to do tonight, is take this methodology and this hermeneutic and this way of doing exegesis and use it for stuff that we have brought as something that we feel like is significant to us personally. Doesn't necessarily mean that it's significant to all of us. The idea, though, is for us to share and hopefully us seek an understanding of it and why it holds meaning not only for you, but obviously it holds meaning for other people or it wouldn't be out there in culture. Like, you know, I'm pretty sure all of us brought something that someone else besides ourselves enjoys in some form or fashion. It's just so happens it had some sort of effect or meaning on us. So what I want to do is just kind of go around the room, and those of us who have something, you can share briefly what it is that you brought and a little bit about it. But I don't want to get into this is why it means something to me. I want to hold off on that. I just want you to introduce what it is. Maybe when you were introduced to it, you know, so some of the background information to it as far as it pertains to yourself, and then we'll go into doing a little more actual focus on cultural exegesis stuff. So, Travis?
I brought the movie Good Will Hunting. I guess kind of, if you're not familiar with it, background, it stars Robin Williams and Matt Damon and a very young Ben Affleck. I guess they're all very young, except for Robin Williams. But basically, it's a little about the movie. It's about a janitor who works at, where'd he go? Is it Harvard, or where's he?
MIT.
MIT.
He doesn't actually do it.
But
Yeah, well, he's a janitor there, and they find out that he's a mathematical genius. However, he's had some kind of storied past. I think he was orphaned, and so he gets in trouble a lot. He doesn't really do well with authority or people telling him what to do, and so they set him up with a psychologist or a psychiatrist or whatever. And that's Robin Williams, and it's basically just about how he deals with his struggles and how the psychiatrist helps him out. And it's set, obviously, MIT, so it's up north. Ben Affleck's accent is going strong.
sounds Boston.
But yeah, it's a good movie. I won't go into more than that. So, it's a link.
James?
Mine's an album on my phone. It's Ben Rector's The Walking in Between. It's his latest album. I was a Ben Rector fan before, but then I saw him at the Ryman in Nashville in October, and probably the best concert I've ever been to. And just downloaded the album as soon as I left and couldn't stop listening to it because it's just incredible, and just had lots of things on my heart from it. So.
Ruby?
I brought a book known by the name of Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. It was an extraordinary New York Times bestseller, published in the late 1990s by Scholastic. It's about an orphan boy who lives with his aunt and uncle who discovers that he's a wizard. And he has all these mini adventures and gets to go into this amazing school known as Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry.
Nonfiction?
Well, it wasn't until this book that I realized that I was a muggle, and there's this whole other world of witches and wizards living amongst us. But unfortunately, it's fiction, but I wish it had been real so many times. I was first introduced to it when James Ciano was like the first kid in our 6th grade class to start reading it, and then I ordered it in the Scholastic book order. And ever since, it's been...
Which one is it again?
This is the first one, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, also known as Philosopher's Stone, from the Bloomsbury UK edition.
Indeed.
Very nice. Jamie, what album was it in there?
The Walking in Between.
Do any of our online friends have anything?
Drew stole mine. I was going to talk about Harry Potter too.
Well, you can talk about Harry Potter too. There was
Harry Potter 2, also known as Chamber of Secrets.
I was going to talk about Harry Potter, comma.
Okay. Go ahead.
I mean, he explained the whole series pretty well. Like, I started reading it, like, I guess, I don't know, when I was probably, like, I was pretty young, like, maybe, like, 9 or 10, and so I kind of grew up, like, reading that series, and it, like, went along. I remember I finished the last one. It wasn't until I was, like, a senior in high school, and I actually, like, got around to finishing the last one, so it was a pretty, like, central, like, I don't know, pop culture thing in my life growing up.
You grew up with him, Mo.
I know. Amazing.
Anybody else?
I got Heartbreaking Work of Staggering Genius. It's it's a memoir about a guy who his parents die really close together of cancer, and he has to take care of them as they're dying, and then he has to raise his younger brother, and then he goes and founds McSweeney's, which is the publishing house, if anybody knows what McSweeney's is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is his story. And all of his bad things that happened to him.
What's the name of the book again? I'm sorry.
It's A Heartbreaking Work of Staggering Genius.
Oh, okay.
It's not at all vain.
When did it come out?
Well, I got it when I was 18, so I'm pretty sure it'd been out for a while at that point. Let me see. 2000.
Oh.
Oh, that's my wheelhouse right there. 2000.
Oh, yeah.
When you were
Well, I think I got it in 2004, so.
2004, shut the door.
All right.
We brought our tickets to the Book of Mormon.
Oh,
Nice.
yeah, nice.
We're really excited. We're going to go see it at the end of June. It's a musical written by the guys who do South Park. And Wesley and I have been listening to it for like 2 weeks straight. So we have full thing memorized.
Oh man.
Nice.
That one song I heard. I forget which one. I keep. Burn up. Yeah. Oh my gosh. That song. Anyway.
What was that, Man Up?
Yeah. Oh man. That's an interesting.
Oh man.
Yeah,
That's a good song.
horrible.
That's a good song. Man up. Be ready? You got anything?
Open.
Okay.
I didn't bring anything there.
Emma?
So I brought Tyler Perry's Diary of a Mad Black Woman.
I would expect nothing less, Imlat.
So this movie is it's fiction, loosely fiction. I think it's based on some family members in Tyler Perry's life, but the story is about a woman who gets divorced, and she does not work because her husband is an attorney, and so she has this feeling of low self-worth because she doesn't think that she can do anything, but through the words of Medea, she learns that she can do anything that she sets her mind to, and it's kind of a story of hope, and yeah.
Nice. Thank you, sir. I brought, it's 2 songs, but they're kind of tied in together by a band called Pianos Become the Teeth. I don't know why that's their band name. You have? Well, I hope you have. Anyway, so the 2 songs are called Spine and, well, Liquid Courage and Spine. So those are the names of the songs. They are, I don't know. I have a hard time sometimes labeling what band's genre is, but if you were going to put a genre on it, it would be sort of post-punk hardcore, if that makes sense.
Where does iTunes classify them?
I don't know.
Probably
Probably rock or metal or something like that.
Are they heavy on piano? Since that's in their name. Like,
No, not heavy on pianos. I don't really know. I haven't found any background information on the name. I think it was just a name. So I wish I had more. But as far as the 2 songs, the background on it is on a previous album, you start to hear the story about the lead singer's dad who has multiple sclerosis. And one of the songs, it's called Cripples Can't Shiver, and it's about his dad. And there's like a part in it where his mom is giving a speech at church about how hard it's been to see him fall apart because of multiple sclerosis. And so this album that these songs are on is 95% about his dad. And so anyway, that's kind of the background on those songs. So what I want to do next is, because some of these things would be really difficult unless we watched it or saw it or something like that to discuss in depth, that's something we'll have to do on our own. But what I wanted to do is if any of us, we'll go through the line, if any of us have heard these things or seen these things, maybe we can talk about a little bit of our impressions of it and what we've liked about it or any kind of impact it might have had on us. So, for instance, has anybody seen Good Will Hunting?
Yes.
I've never seen Good Will Hunting.
What?
I've heard a lot of stuff about Good Will Hunting. I've heard it's really good. I've seen it, like bits and pieces of it on TV. Like I think I've seen an argument before between Robin Williams' character and Matt Damon's character. So I've caught some of that, but I haven't seen the movie all the way through, so I have no kind of reference point. But for those of you who have, maybe we just spend a moment kind of talking about that. Those of you who have seen.
I think it's kind of cool the character that Robin Williams portrays, the fact that he presents himself on the front end as broken, kind of like Matt Damon is, and I think that's kind of how he's able to kind of break down that wall that Matt Damon has built up psychologically, because in the movie, he's gone to like 3 or 4 psychologists before, Robin Williams' character, and the fact that Robin Williams' character is from the same part of Boston Matt Damon's character is from, it kind of helps to, solidify their relationship and kind of give them a rapport.
Everybody else seen it? Maybe general impressions?
It's written by Matt Damon, and like that was one of their first big things, and you can really tell. And it's really cool. You know, it's set in Boston, so you kind of feel like it's a story.
They won an Oscar, right, for that?
Yeah, for best screenplay, which goes to the writers. And I guess there's
And Robin Williams won Best Supporting
right.
Actor.
But it was such a good movie, and that this was their first time writing a movie that a lot of people. I remember there's a lot of press that they didn't actually write the movie, and I think they did. But I think just because it's so successful, and this was like a first time thing, people were hesitant. I don't know why. I just see it.
The Citizen Kane of our culture.
Yeah, exactly. But one thing I've always liked about the movie is the soundtrack is really good. And there's the song at the very end when the credits are rolling. I don't know, it always, after film and then hearing the song, it always puts me into a very contemplative mood.
Any other thoughts on Good Will Hunting? Just general stuff. All right. Anybody listen to Ben Rector's album, Walking in Between? I've literally never heard of Ben Rector.
Seriously, he did one of his songs at the retreat.
That doesn't mean I know who he is. No idea. I'm sure he's wonderful.
Yeah, I don't know. He's one of my favorite artists too, and so I've heard a lot of his music. And so it's been kind of interesting. Like I remember like when I saw him the first time, I didn't even know who he was, and I saw him at a concert. Dave Barnes was like the headliner, and me and some of my friends went when I was in college and saw him. And this Ben Rector guy, I was like, he's pretty good. So like kind of listened to more of his music, and I really started like it. It's kind of poppy and catchy in some ways, but it's like I don't know, it's really cool. And like I even got to meet him at another concert I went to. He's like a really nice, like down to earth, like genuinely like good person. It seems like so he's really likable, and his music is kind of like relatable too. Like just talks about like a lot of like the struggles going through life, that kind of stuff. So you didn't really seem fake. He seems like a real guy who cares about making music and like connecting with his fans and that kind of stuff. So yeah, he's one of my faves.
Anybody else a Ben Rector fan?
I'm a Ben Rector fan. This is hopefully not going too far into the meaning part, but there's a song on his album, I think, on that particular album. Basically, it's a really dinky song. It's just like him on the piano, and it's kind of it's basically like how he thinks it's funny that we're so obsessed with money.
Oh, yeah.
That's kind of the
Making Money.
Making Money is the name of the song, and one of the also on that album, he kind of has a theme with this money thing. He also has this one line in one of his other songs about basically like, here I am stuck staring at my computer screen, fixing problems while the grass grows green outside, you know, that kind of thing. Like, there's a kind of, what I remember about that album is there seems to be like that common theme about, even though he's a musician and doesn't do these things, but it kind of connected with me at the time just because I was like working my first job when his new album came out, and I was like, you know, so I just remember it had that kind of like theme about that, at least through some of the songs.
All right. So let's just clump Harry Potter together. This is another admission of mine. I have read 0 Harry Potter books.
Me too, bro.
I have seen several of the movies. So I have a general idea about Harry Potter. And I always like, there's some scene in one movie, I forget what it is, but Jonah Hill says, should we call him Harold Potter? He's like old now or something like that. Harold Potter. Anyway, so I have seen some of those movies, so I kind of have a working knowledge of some of the characters and stuff, but not much else for me as far as Harry Potter. Everybody else, Harry Potter readers, movie watchers?
I'm a huge Harry Potter fan. I've read all of them, 1 through 5 at least 3 or 4 times, and probably six to 2 times, maybe 7 once. But it's like Mo was talking about. It's kind of a nostalgia thing. Like you grew up with it. As Harry Potter grew up, I grew up too, and it was. And as the books go on, the themes get deeper, and they face harder issues and stuff like that. And so it really makes you think about things through different levels.
Especially when you found that there was another world
I know.
Yeah.
that you can
There's a platform 9 3/4. I can scratch
Only
that.
if you're a wizard. We had to face the reality that we're muggles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why did my parents have any wizard blood?
Yeah. What?
I remember, this is more on the movie side, but, well, it kind of ties to the book. I remember hearing that one of the reasons they chose Daniel Radcliffe is because he looked like the weird drawings of Harry Potter on the book. So I always thought that was a interesting, like lucky guy, Because he was just like a little kid back when it started, so it really kind of could have been anybody, I feel like. So, I thought that was a thought I had about Harry Potter, how lucky kind of he was to, and I'm sure there was other reasons, but look like him and then be.
It wasn't because of acting.
Yeah, exactly, my point. So, but he's, look how far he's come, so.
Oh, Harold.
Oh, Harold.
I like the one.
He's naked.
You liked one of them?
I like the one.
Oh, the one. Yeah. No doubt. Any other?
No, maybe some of your students would like to know there is a Harry Potter, which is a Latin translation of Harry Potter.
Yes. Yeah, I didn't know that. I need to buy it. I have been needing to get that.
Through his See more Harry? I feel like I'm hearing that wrong. The Harriest Potter?
Harry Potter.
Harry and Potter.
Speaking of Latin translation and stuff, totally off topic, but the teacher who was at like the school I'm at before me left her versions of Winnie the Pooh in Latin behind, so that made me really happy.
That's really random.
That's random.
It's so awesome. Anyway, sorry.
Winnie is the Pooh.
Winnie the Pooh.
Winnie the Pooh, yeah.
All right. Heartbreaking work of staggering genius. Does anybody know of this at all? I've never heard of it. I do know of McSweeney's, though.
Yeah, I've heard of McSweeney's.
I've read that. I've
If
read
it
that.
does help, he wrote the screenplay for Where the Wild Things Are.
Oh,
Nice.
So
I know that. That's
it's a really good book. Y'all should read it.
yeah.
Anybody?
Heartbreaking work of staggering genius.
It
Well,
truly is.
It lives up to its name.
There's also a stapler in the I think on the copyright page. There's a stapler.
A stapler?
A little background information. That was actually what they were going to call the Bible, but they went with holy. Of a heartbreaking work of staggering genius. I feel like it would have been better. Yeah, I got nothing on that. But McSweeney's, I had a friend in college who would read McSweeney's, and like every once in a while he would find something on there and he'd want me to read it or whatever. So that's kind of my point of reference to it.
I think
Book of Mormon.
19.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Huh?
Were you saying something? I'm sorry.
I was saying I think I have like 19, 20, 24, and like 36 of the McSweeney's.
Oh, nice.
Those things are hard to find.
Yeah, I've only read stuff online. I've never seen the hard copies of it.
They're pretty cool because they always change up the way in which they present them.
Yeah.
Like 36 is presented as a massive newspaper, and you buy it and it's this big like Sunday edition newspaper of things. And I've one that's a cigar box filled with little bitty books. Yeah.
That's cool. It sounds kind of Harry Potter-esque.
Yeah.
All right, Book of Mormon. Anybody seen that before? Have not.
Has it come in Memphis yet? Are y'all going to
It's
Memphis?
at the end of June.
I was saying, I know there's been ads for it.
Yeah, I'm hoping. I'm not gonna be able to go.
My sister went to see it, and that's how I heard of Man Up, because she sent me an email with that song. She didn't preface it. It was just, she was sitting me awake. You know, all of a sudden I'm listening to this song in my office, and I realized very quickly I should probably turn it down. Or shut my door.
Yeah,
One or the other.
That
Should probably take place. Or not.
It's about like modern day Mormons, and it's about these two who are sent on their mission, and they're sent to Uganda.
Ooh.
So that's the premise of it. It's really rude and crude. On my ticket it says explicit language, so there's that. One of the writers says it's their love letter. It's an atheist love letter to religion.
To what?
It's an atheist love letter to religion.
Sounds interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does.
I've seen some of the South Park episodes that deal with Mormons, and so I have a feeling that some of that is going to creep in.
Yeah.
And
It's written by the same people. Isn't that what you said?
yeah,
Yeah.
creators of South Park. Diary of a Mad Black Woman. Tyler Perry's diary, because there could be another diary of a Mad Black Woman. Tyler Perry's Diary of a Mad Black Woman. Anybody?
Hope not.
I have seen some Medea movies, but they weren't the theatrical ones. They were the ones that they filmed that are plays.
Oh.
So that's the only one.
Yeah,
I don't know which ones I've seen. I dated a girl one time. She loved Medea, so I had to watch these plays.
The movies are better.
And I liked the plays. I thought they were well done, and there was lots of funny stuff in it. But I noticed that in the plays, and I'm sure the movies are the same way, but it can go from really funny to really serious in a drop of the hat. Like those themes kind of just run along throughout the film. I don't know if that's kind of what that is.
They can at times. I mean, there are some definite serious moments and some teachable moments in the films.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Teachable moments.
Yeah.
Teachable moments.
Anybody seen it?
Yeah, but I was gonna say pretty much what you just said is that you think it's gonna be all fun and games, but it's pretty heavy in parts, and so it's just kind of like a bit of a roller coaster to watch sometimes.
Anybody else? Medea? Knowledge? Yeah, I got nothing.
Medea.
Besides. Okay. Something that all of you know about. Pianos become teeth. Go.
I like that name, man.
I like it when the pianos actually became the teeth.
Yeah, you did like that part.
Yeah.
That was a good part.
Does that mean that they had some black teeth?
No.
They would have had to have some sprinkled in there. Ebony and ivory teeth, man.
I'm not sure.
Or like tiny pianos are their teeth.
It's
like the whole thing.
But I thought it meant the keys are their teeth.
Just no pianos.
First off, I don't know where you're getting any of this information. All I said is the man's name was pianos become the teeth. You're doing all this interpretive stuff.
George
Right,
Washington's
right.
teeth were actually made of ivory too.
That's probably what it is.
That's exactly it.
Okay. All right. So we have a general sense of some of the stuff, and we've heard of some of each of our meaning or significant stuff, and then we've heard some of it that's not necessarily something that we've heard anything about or watched or seen or anything like that. And I'm sure that there's lots of other stuff that you guys like that you didn't bring. I don't want to pin this and say this is the only thing. Like I don't want to really do psychoanalysis with what we picked. I don't want to sit here and pretend like somehow we're going to figure out and be able to label one another and be able to come to an understanding of who we are as human beings by one thing that we brought to the table. But I do think that what we do bring to the table says something about us. And I think it also says something about our culture at large. Once again, I don't think most of these things are pretty popular in some sense or another. Like lots of people have heard of Ben Rector, Good Will Hunting won awards, Harry Potter, a few people read it, like a couple. McSweeney's, lots of people have heard of that. Maybe not heard about his story or his book, but I've heard of that at least. Book of Mormon obviously is doing well because it wouldn't be out of Broadway in New York if it wasn't doing well. They wouldn't travel with it. Diary of a Mad Black Woman, I mean, everybody's probably culturally heard of Medea in some way. And there are people in this world that actually like the music that I like too. So there are other people in the world who listen to that as well.
Or else those people want to keep making music.
Exactly.
Exactly.
But I don't think the idea of this is not to look at the particular cultural thing that we brought. It's to look at how it fits within the grand narrative of other cultural things. There are themes within our movies, within our songs, within our books that have cultural significance that go beyond like different labels and different ways of. So Ben Rector might sing a song about money that is going to have significance across the line. Like it's not just going to be like only his song sings about that. There's going to be other songs. There's going to be movies. There's going to be news articles. There's going to be stuff that ties into the themes. So what I want to do is to culturally exegete the themes that are going through and try to attach those to not only significance for us, because we're going to find out why it's significant for us, but also to attach it to a larger meta-narrative within our world, and then see how these themes, our faith addresses it in some way. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So it's not whether or not we quote-unquote like Diary of a Mad Black Woman. It's not quote-unquote whether or not we like Ben Rector songs or Pianos Become the Teeth or Book of Mormon musical. It's about the themes within it. And I think, for me, this is a difficult thing because I can sometimes be a cultural snob and think, and you know, one of the things I said, we're not going to reduce one another's stuff. Like, I typically, what I do is, if I hear something I don't like, it sucks. And I'm not going to pay attention to it, and I'm not going to go see it, and I think it's silly when other people do. But that's not a good way of trying to understand the world I live in. A good way is to look at it for what it is, see the things that it's speaking about, and try to connect that with the things that I think about. And then on top of that, look at how faith addresses those things. Because these things would not exist if people weren't seeking answers and seeking knowledge and had questions and had some sort of desire for these things to exist. Does that make sense? I feel like that these things exist for a reason. Just as much as we have this God-inspired scripture that in some way is supposed to breathe life into our faith and practice, this somehow, some way, culture is breathing life into us in some medium. And so we just so happen to connect with some of these mediums, and we wanted to share those. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Okay. So that's what we're going to be doing. The only way, though, we could do this is that if we commit to one another to actually take the time to invest in listening and to reading and to watching and to, in some way, engage into what one another brought. So, for instance, it's not enough for me to see a movie preview, read a review, and make up my mind. The only way that I should really make up my mind about a movie is I saw it, and I can interpret it myself. But this isn't about what I think about it, it's about what I see as themes. to get to that cultural aspect of it. So instead of reducing it, try to pick the themes out. So with that being said, I wondered if we could commit to one another to take this list of what we've got to the best of our ability and try to engage it. So watch A Diary of a Mad Black Woman. Watch Good Will Hunting. You might not be able to see the Book of Mormon, but you can listen to its songs online, right? You can find all the songs online.
Yeah, all the songs are online.
Yeah, like on YouTube. You can find Ben Rector songs on that album that you can listen to.
It's on Spotify now, so that's...
Yeah, it's on Spotify. I'm sure YouTube. Typically, people have downloaded every song known to man on YouTube that you can find. I'm not going to read the Harry Potter series.
All 7.
But I'm willing to read the first one and go from there. Now, if there's a collective wisdom that we should enter into another part of the series first, I'm down with that. But I generally start at the beginning. I feel like there's a reason that they start there. It's the author. Yeah. What other things am I missing? McSweeney. So the book.
Making work of staggering genius is totally different from
Staggering Genius. Yeah, it's fine. Read that book in some way. Is that a long book? I don't know. Is it like thousands of pages? It's not War and Peace or anything, right?
It's this big.
Oh, okay. That looks tiny.
Yeah, they have big margins.
Oh, nice.
Big margins. Woo.
It's not Twilight margins, but it's still margin.
Pictures?
There's a stapler in here somewhere.
Okay, well, that
The BM, big margin.
So to start us off, I brought the songs that I have, and I brought the lyrics to those songs, and so I wanted us to engage in that. If you would, humor me this, and know that I will never make you listen to this again.
And we're not going to make fun. We're going to listen.
You can make fun afterwards, just not to my face. But anyway, so I thought we could listen to these songs. I have the lyrics. If you guys online want to look up the lyrics and follow along, I would advise you to do that. Unless you're used to listening to people scream, you're probably not going to understand the word. So the band's name is Pianos Become the Teeth, and the two songs, the first one is Liquid Courage, and the second one is Spine. So just so you know. So anyway, I figured we could do this as an experiment tonight and see what kind of methodology I was looking at, so we can talk about listening to it, engaging it, not labeling it, and then culturally exegeting it by using the world behind and in front. So that's what we're going to do. And then,
this is a short song?
they're not super short. They're not like 10 minutes long or anything like that.
Because I look at the lyrics here and it's only like...
Yeah, the first one's not very long.
Oh, okay.
So, and then hopefully here in the next couple of weeks we're together, we'll take the time this week and maybe just pick, hey, okay, so for next week, we're going to talk about Good Will Hunting and Ben Rector Walking in Between. And so everybody will try to watch that movie and listen to those songs. And then maybe tonight, I'm sorry?
Is it on Netflix?
I'm not sure. Is Good Will
Probably.
Yeah, I watched it on Netflix before.
Yeah, I'm not sure. So anyway, we'll do the best we can for those of us that can, and then we'll come and discuss that through that. But whoever has watched it can help us walk through that exegeting because you've seen it, you know it. Does that make sense? Okay. All right. So we're going to give this a shot. And I want you to know that I love you, and I wouldn't do this unless it meant something to me.
I love you, man.
I wouldn't subject you to this any other way. So
yeah. Well, you brought some lyrics.
I did bring the lyrics. Because they're very important.
They're necessary.
Yeah. They are very necessary. If you're going to sit through this, you're going to want the lyrics.
Yeah.
All right. Y'all ready for some Bible study metal? I am.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan. All right. Can y'all hear that okay?
Sure.
Yeah.
What am I plugging?
The speaker from the iPhone.
Oh, that's
Plug it back. All right, thank you for suffering through that.
Into the headphones.
All right, so Back Nation, as far as the song goes, like I said, the lead singer's dad had multiple sclerosis. In the earlier album, he's talking about how hard it's been to see his dad that way. And this whole album is about what happened through seeing his dad die and watching that and experiencing that. Other songs on it, one of the songs I thought about playing talks about the funeral and talks about what the preacher is trying to say. And one of the lyrics is, sit down, let it be, if only today, for only for me. What exactly are you selling, preach? It's misery. And so he's talking about the preacher trying to make this like a happy thing and a good thing, but it's just miserable. So anyway, so this whole album is basically about his dad dying and him dealing with it and moving on from it and trying to deal with it and see his family dealing with it and stuff like that. And so the songs themselves, Liquid Courage is, I guess I didn't share some more background. One of the background information that you can find online is they kind of walk through the album and how the songs came together. And he says for this song, Liquid Courage, he just sat down, wrote the lyrics, didn't change them at all, and this was just what he was feeling. And so he just sang it, yelled it, I guess you should say. So anyway, this is like his unedited feeling about what was going on that day. And then on Spine is basically a continuation on that day, more thought out a little bit about what he saw during his dad's death and things that he was experiencing through that. So in front of the text, why it's meaningful for me and why I think it's significant for me is I lost my dad when I was 16. And several of these phrases and some of the things he talked about, I really resonate. And recently it was my dad's birthday, and he's been gone 17 years now, 16 years. And so for me it's been really significant because once you get that far away removed from someone who was significant in your life, you start to lose some things like memories, and you forget how they laughed. That makes sense. Like you don't even remember that anymore, and there's not a whole lot of pictures of them and stuff like that. So that I have, there are pictures of them, but just stuff like that. And so these lyrics and these songs, for me, have been very cathartic. It really meant a lot to me because I still suffer through that. And one of the lines in the song is, "These things never leave, they stay with you." And I still remember my dad's funeral very vividly. I remember getting there, and there was lots of people, and there had tons of people talking about him. And I can remember the setup of the sanctuary. I can remember leaving, and he had an American flag over his casket because he was in the military. And I remember that very vividly, them folding it and giving it to my mom and watching him be buried, and all of that, is very, very real and still very significant in my mind. He talks about the room number, the first Christmas they suffered through, just stuff like that that is very significant and very meaningful to me. He talks about his illness in a way that he took it away. He never experienced it. So in that song, Spine, he talks about, him being on fire and not being able to shake it loose and not being able to do anything for him at all. And that's kind of how I felt about my father, watching him suffer through cancer, having no answers, having no way to deal with it, showing up to his deathbed. And I remember very vividly all the family standing around and bending down to kiss him, and there's no response. There's no, all of that stuff. So for me, this has been very meaningful and cathartic, and why it's significant to me. And the reason why I like it in this genre is because I'm still angry about it. And I like the passion of it. It's not happy. I don't want to hear some sort of, soulful, beautiful sung song. I want to hear raw emotion when I think about this, because that's how I feel in my heart, and that's how I still feel about it. Mm-hmm. It's very raw, and it still strikes a chord, and there's passion to it, and I like that. So that's why I like that kind of music anyway, is because I think it has passion to it, and they're not, sugarcoating stuff and trying to make it pretty when it's not. So that's kind of my cultural exegesis of why, the background of it and the actual songs, and then why it means something to me personally. And then, so the next step would be, as you were reading through it and listening to it, what are ways of the themes that you're picking out of it that are significant to you?
Well,
That would be the next step.
I know the first one, the lines that she misses the regimen, she misses the annoyances, every time it's bittersweet. Every time my aunt, because my uncle had cancer for 3 of those 4 years, so it's very long, 3 years. And my aunt stopped teaching and just took care of him. And after he passed away, it was like she had to figure out how to restart her life and figure out who she was and everything like that, because she was going to a nurse for 3 years. So that just made me think of her.
For me, the Liquid Courage, the thing that kind of, it wasn't as much about the lyrics, I guess, although of all the lyrics in the song, definitely the 3 last lines I think were the most poignant to me, but the drums in that song are very, just they kind of overtake the song. You can barely even hear him singing or what he's saying, in the second song you can hear, and in the second song there's a lot more going on instrumentally, but you can hear you can hear his voice more, but in the first one you just hear a lot of drums, and you kind of hear his voice coming in through that. That makes me, thinking, just to boil it all down, I enjoy what I got out of this culturally is just ways we deal with our pain, in one of them, in the first one, I think, it's just the pain so overwhelming you can't even hear yourself think. You can't even really rationalize it. What you're saying doesn't really seem to cut through the pain that you're feeling. And then in the second one, the line that stood out to me was, "I couldn't fight against the loss." And the second song seemed a little more violent. Seemed a little, it was more heavy, and just he couldn't fight against that loss, but the way he dealt, one of the ways he's dealing with the pain, and it's the passion you talked about is, kind of taking it out on the song in a way, especially especially with the details, like I think he was most ridiculous whenever he sang Room 211. He was just like screaming that more than any other part in that song, or at least it seemed that way to me. So it's just like those details and those things that he remembers, things like that you remember that make you angry and things like that. Like he just really is fighting against those things through music as opposed to, physically or something. So that's kind of, I don't know if that's really a cultural thing, but just kind of overall, it just kind of speaks to, like I think that's a normal response to us whenever something bad happens, is to want to take it out on something and trying to find a way to channel that into something.
We all process things so differently, and it's obvious that's what he's doing with the song, the lyrics, the music. He's processing everything that he's gone through.
And just one quick thing, I will say I like this more than I used to listen to metal music. So even though it wasn't as independent as some of the bands you listen to, I guess I was more mainstream metal. But
Creed, Nickelback.
Man, Slipknot, In Flames, you know what I'm saying. But one of the things that I like, just having been somebody who's listened to metal music before and got some out of it, I think you're right. I think it is more meaningful when it is trying to be. I think it's more meaningful as an art form or as a way of dealing with suffering when it's about things like this. Because I remember listening to, even though it's fun to just kind of bang your head and to jam out, like it's not as meaningful when somebody's talking about, like, I remember there was this one song by, I can't remember the name of them, but they have this like metal song that's in a racing video game, and it's awesome, like the music's awesome, but there's really no need for them to be screaming about, like, I'm winning, like there's just no, it's just like there's no stuff like. I was more just excited about the music, but I think like what you said is true, like just the way of in that setting, what you talked about and what he's dealing with, I think it is a really powerful, it makes it more powerful, for sure.
All right. I guess the last thing is to try to identify major themes within it, and then talk about our faith. And that's really what we're trying to get at, is to take it for what it is and then find the major themes. So what are major themes that you take away from these two songs?
Lack of control over things, over situations.
Yeah, just like questioning things and trying to come to terms with things we can't understand and, like you said, we can't control.
Life goes on because it has to, I think was the line that kind of, like it's not because I can choose to stop it or start it at this moment, but it's just going on because it has to. So, like just kind of the lack of that line in particular, I think, kind of speaks to that.
Death and dying. I think it's a big theme throughout both of them.
I think of grief, the grieving process of it, losing a routine. Right. Any other major things that stuck out to you? So what in your faith has helped you in these themes, or in these ways? What about your faith has helped you through grief, mourning, suffering, lack of control, or coming to terms in some way? I know for me, right before my dad died, I went to a church retreat, my friend Troy asked me to go to Crystal Springs Camp in Kelso, Tennessee, which the only thing Kelso is known for is there's a rum distillery there called Pritchard's, which if you're into rum, is awesome. So anyway, they invited me to this church camp, and I met a bunch of people there that I really enjoyed, and there was one particular girl that I fancied. So, yeah, you know what I'm saying. And so anyway, we ended up hanging out and, did the whole exchange numbers thing and stuff like that. And she went to high school real close to me. And so anyway, my dad died a week later. And the first people I called wasn't like my friends from school that I've known for life, and it wasn't other family. It was these people that I had just met. And I think that one of the reasons why I did that was because I knew that they had faith in their life. And I knew it was real and significant because I saw it in action at this little retreat that I went to and stuff. So, I think for me, that was one of my first instances where my faith and people of faith really helped me through something, or it made a difference or made a significant impact in my life, is because I saw these people of faith and how they came beside me and loved me and cared for me.
Well, I think for me, one way, like my dad died a few years ago after many years of cancer, and not necessarily how my faith helped me with grief. Well, I guess in a way, yeah, my faith helped me with grief in the form of like our church community. Just because like those people, like those are the people that come to the funeral. Those are the people that come that came to the funeral, that came to our house afterwards and everything. And so many, I guess, growing up within the church, so many of, at least in my life, life milestones take place in the church. Your baptism, your confirmation, even graduating from high school, marriage, funerals happen within the church. And so in a way, they've experienced a lot of those things with me. And that's where I found my comfort.
I was going to say, kind of off that, like, I think one thing that our faith does, and that I guess belief in God does, but it forces you to kind of pull these things up out of the surface a little bit, because of, I guess our natural, at least my natural tendency is, if you're struggling with something that's kind of personal, especially grief like that, you kind of keep to yourself. At least this is my natural tendency. I kind of keep to myself and shut down a bit. But like being part of being part of each other's lives in a faith, or not just in a faith-based community, but I attribute it a lot to faith in God, that people come together and they want you to express those things with the knowledge that, they're not all yours. Someone else has them, whether that's a community of believers around you, whether that's their prayer for you, whether that's just God in general that has those things, and you're not the only person that deals with them. We deal with them along with you. You don't have to, it's just like a comforting thing. I think that our, and it's like you said, just kind of having those milestones that happen in the church, that makes it very real.
I know also through this experience for me is it really shaped my faith in lots of that I think about God and how I think about faith. For instance, I don't adhere to the whole idea that all of that was a part of some grand plan that God had for my life. I don't adhere that that was God's will for my dad. Or I don't believe in a God that wanted to teach me a lesson in some way, and so he used this as the mechanism to make sure that that lesson happened. Like stuff that you hear sometimes from people of faith. I'm not knocking that. That's fine if you find comfort in that. But I don't find comfort in that. And I think it's all because of those experiences when I was younger and how I saw that shape my faith. So I definitely see the impact of how I believe now is from something that happened to me so long ago and still has shaped that for me.
And one of the things too, for me, I'm with you along as, actually it's kind of like a hazy place for me, but sometimes I'm like, well, maybe that was the plan, or sometimes I'm like, no, that definitely is not what I believe was supposed to happen. But one of the things that comforts me about that is that even if it's not the plan, like having faith gives you at least hope that, regardless if it was a plan or not, even if it wasn't the plan, it doesn't matter because God can still use that and he can still do something about it. It's not the end of, things because something happens, whether it's a plan or not, it's just not the end because he can use it. So I don't know if, that faith helps me in that way. Just knowing that he can use it.
Yeah, and definitely don't think that bad things happen because of God set out and planned on this day this is gonna happen, because I don't think that's how God loves us. But I do think he can take bad situations and make something good out of them. But I think we live in an imperfect world, and that's why I think that's happening.
All right. Well, that's kind of how we're going to do stuff over the next few weeks. So next week, everyone, if you can, do to the best of your ability. So you will have reasons to be here and talk. I want you to be here every time, but I want you to have a reason to share as well. So for next week, Goodwill Hunting, and then Ben Rector walking in between, and then so that's what we're going to talk about next week. All right. Anything we should be praying about this week?
It's good that Liva's surgery went well.
Cece? Yes.
Or Liva's mother, excuse me.
Yeah, Cece.
Yeah, thank you for the correction.
Well, if Liva was having surgery, she looked great today. I was at the hospital all day, and she looked like...
It's like she didn't even go on.
It's like she didn't.
It's like she was there all the time.
Yeah, so I haven't heard from them tonight, but I think the plan was to keep Cece, Liva's mom, sedated and wake her up tomorrow. So that was the plan going in.
What surgery had to be done? My dad mentioned something about that to me the other day, but I didn't exactly get what was going to happen.
She had, remember a few months ago, September or something like that, she had a tumor, and they had surgery on that and removed it. It had grown back.
Okay.
Growing back. So they found out it was a different kind of tumor. They're not sure. They still think it's benign, but they want to make sure, so they're going to test it and all. But it was growing back again, so they went back in to have surgery to remove it. So, and the hope is that they got it all.
Yes.
Yes.
And then also for me, I'm having an MRI done tomorrow. I've had some issues with some of my vision, and I went to see John Freeman, and he saw some, I honestly don't know what he saw, but at the back of my eye, and he thinks that there's something maybe putting pressure on my optic nerve, so just to rule out anything in my head, I'm having an MRI done tomorrow, so just hope that goes well.
I keep on phone back to say she had treatment today.
Safe travels to Florida. Have fun with your family.
Yeah.
I'm actually pretty excited. It was just gonna be me and my mom, but my sister Amber's gonna come with Bennett and Granny baby Madeline. So I'm pretty excited about that because then I'll get like a whole week to spend with them before I go back to Scotland.
Anybody else? Somebody would like to pray for us to finish tonight?
I got it.
Thank you, Jane.
Heavenly Father, I thank you for this time together, for us to learn more about each other, but also in the process learn more about you and learn more about this culture and how we see things through different lenses. I lift all these prayer requests up to you, especially for CC and Travis as Mr. an MRI tomorrow, for Drew and safe travels, for Cecilia. We thank you for all that you do and everything you are. It's in your holy and precious name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Good night, y'all.
Bye.
Good night.
Oh, wow.
See you guys. Hope everything goes well tomorrow, Trav. I'll be thinking about you.